Today, we're going over medium bases for X-Wing 2nd Edition. It's important to note that we are proxying medium bases using some 3D printed ones. A medium base is approximately 1.5 base lengths long. That's right, you get to hear me say base lengths a lot more during this video too. Base lengths, base lengths, base lengths! This puts it right in the middle of a large base ship and a small base ship. I mean, yeah, it's called a medium base ship. Let's take a look at Strait maneuvers. As with the other base sizes, the distance traveled is equal to the speed of the maneuver plus the base's length, which in this case would be 2.5, the one from the Strait and then another 1.5 from the base. This can get a little wonky when flying with different sized bases. Take the small base with the medium base. When starting a maneuver with the fronts aligned, it is impossible to end the maneuver with the fronts still aligned, as they will always be at least half a base length off. The same is true for large base ships, as they are also comprised of a whole number of base lengths. If you want the front of the ships to align on the first turn, then you can start with the rear of the bases aligned. This adds in that extra half base length that was missing from before. Ships will still only align every other turn, but this way you control when that turn is. This shows an example of 2 turns after starting with the front of the bases aligned. Next up, we have bank maneuvers. When performing a one bank, the distance between the closest corners is almost exactly 1 standard base length. So that's easy. This, of course, means that a 2 bank is almost 2 base lengths corner to corner, and the 3 bank is almost 3. As with straight maneuvers, starting rear aligned versus starting front aligned makes a big difference. When starting rear aligned, you can perform the same speed of bank next to a small base ship and end your maneuver being front aligned. If the small base starts on the outside of the turn, this will result in it being staggered behind the medium base, but will still not bump. If you start with the ship's front aligned, it's a good idea to leave some separation, or the ships will overlap. This is the case when the small ship is on the inside or the outside of the turn. If you are front aligned, you can increase the speed of the medium base ship on the outside of a turn to end rear aligned and prevent overlapping. This does not work in the same way with large base ships, as they are too big, so leave some separation. If a large base ship is on the outside of a turn and starts rear aligned, it can perform 1 speed higher than the medium base ship and stay rear aligned. If you start rear aligned and the medium base is on the outside, you can perform the same speed bank and end staggered. If your brain hasn't exploded yet, you can put the medium base on the outside of a turn next to a large base ship. If the medium base performs a 3 bank and the large base performs a 1 bank, you can end front aligned. If you try a similar move with a small base ship, it ends about half a base length in front of the medium base. Finally, we have turn maneuvers. A 1 hard with medium base ships leaves only about a quarter base length corner to corner. The 2 hard leaves about 1 1/4 base length corner to corner. We conclude that the pattern for hard turns is about the speed of the maneuver minus 3/4. So this 3 hard leaves about 2 1/4 base lengths in between corner to corner. As you can see, this is not exact and is actually a little less. Just as with banks, being front aligned versus rear aligned can make a big difference when flying with other sized ships. For example, you cannot perform the same speed maneuver without blocking with a small ship front aligned on the inside of a turn. This, however, works fine when the small ship is on the outside of the turn. Note this will also line up their bullseye arcs, which every ship has in 2nd edition. You can also end rear-aligned by starting front-aligned with the small base on the outside of the turn, if you perform a 2-speed higher turn, or a 3 and a 1. If you add a bit of separation, or about half a base length, you can do a 2 and a 1 to stagger bullseye arcs. Now when you start rear-aligned, this lets you perform the same speed turn maneuver, and get that same staggering of bullseye arc. Remember, this only works if the small base ship is on the outside of the turn. You can end with the rear aligned by starting with the rear aligned and doing that same 2 speeds higher turn with the medium base ship. Large space ships can be a lot trickier. Turning the same direction always results in a collision when front aligned. The only exception is when the medium base ship is on the outside of the turn. Then, you can perform the same speed maneuver and end with bullseye arcs lined up. When a large base ship is rear aligned and on the outside of a turn, it can perform a 3 hard along with the 1 hard on the medium base to stagger bullseye arcs and end front aligned. If the medium base ship is on the outside of the turn, you can perform the same speed turn and still stagger bullseye arcs. The biggest takeaway from all this craziness is that ships fly very differently depending on whether they start rear-aligned or front-aligned with the medium base ship. As with small and large base ships, the best way to learn is practice. And don't forget to stagger those bullseyes. If you're new to the game of X-Wing miniatures, check out the other videos below on how to fly small and large base ships. And for more X-Wing fun and information, visit www.backtodials.com. That's all for now. Until the next video.